And welcome everyone to an exciting adventure of the energy that surrounds us. I'm your host, Michael, and thank you to everyone for tuning in as this is a special day for doing episodes. And I am so grateful and so honored to have my guest that's joining me to share her stories and experiences with us. And I can tell you from her bio things about her, but I feel like I would be fumbling up and be like, yeah, I totally could not relate it in the way that she can, and it will just draw you in. And so I am going to turn it over to my amazing guest, the one, the only, experienced traveler, spiritual extraordinaire, Venus Saffaric.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me, having me on. I really appreciate that. So yeah, I am, you may say a mystic. I'm kind of an eclectic practitioner. So I do work with, I'm not kind of dedicated to a specific spiritual path or order. I kind of take what works for me, and I'm very, very intuitive with what I do. My main kind of, I don't know if I would call it a job role, but the main thing that I do Reiki cleansing for people and homes. I do sound healing and a plethora of different types of readings, from mediumship to psychic readings, mostly psychic. Um, I do the kind of general things like crystal ball, tarot, things like that, but I also do a very unique types of readings as well, like bone reading and flower reading. So yeah, just to say quickly, you can check me out at secretfrequencies.com if you wish to look into me a little bit more. But yeah, my story is quite complex when we delve into the extraterrestrial and the paranormal and everything like that. So I'll leave it there for a moment and just, yeah, if there's anything that you I want to ask, or where you kind of want to start. I feel like there's so much that we could delve into.
There is, and one thing I am curious about, and I love the fact that you brought it up because I have not had a guest in these 4 seasons that do this, and that is reading the crystal ball. How does that actually work? Because I think we all have kind of been blinded and everything by Hollywood saying, oh, there's smoke that appears in the ball, and then this image unfolds. And so, how do you actually read a crystal ball?
Okay. Yes. So I get this question a lot, and I definitely feel like my answer varies from other people. Like you're saying that with smoke, I've had a lot of times people say, "You see a rainbow in the ball," and I'm like, "So how are you reading that? What? How are you getting messages from a rainbow? I don't know." Some people, some people's description, it doesn't really make sense to me, but I will explain how I personally use my crystal ball. This is my travel crystal ball. It's really tiny. I take it everywhere with me, literally. Um, but how I use it. So to me, a divination tool, like a crystal ball, is a focus point for your own psychic, spiritual gifts and abilities. So it's more about, for me, having a focal point for my abilities and really honing in my energy. Even when I use a scrying mirror, I also feel that way. But when I use a crystal ball, um, the message can come through to me in a plethora of different ways. So I could be looking at it and I could get like a number or a letter or an image in the ball. That does happen sometimes, but sometimes I'm using it as the focal point and the message will come through clairaudiently. It will be, I'll hear it, or it might come to me in my mind's eye. It might not actually be on the ball, but I really feel like it's a focal point for your spiritual abilities. That's how I would describe it because that's how I use it.
So I have a question you may not have been asked about the crystal ball, and that is, when did you first pick up a crystal ball and realize, oh, I can totally tap into this divination tool? And what impact did it have on you? Was it something like you could talk to people and everybody was like real supportive, or did you have to kind of be like a lot of people and go, I'm going to do this kind of underground because it's not so accepted, but I'm still going to learn?
Yeah, so I would say it was definitely a journey. So in the beginning, crystal ball, I would say about 5 years ago when I first tried it, and I put it off because to me it seemed so difficult. I thought, how, like you asked me how it works, I was the same. I was like, it doesn't make sense. But when I started to use it, it just flowed. It's probably my favorite thing to use. Apart from bone reading, I love bone reading. But um, so yeah, so it was about 5 years ago when I picked that up. But throughout my whole spiritual journey, I feel like I've gone from, like you're saying, being around people who were very more like normal, like mainstream kind of people, and it will be like more hidden to begin with. And then I felt like I progressed as I like traveled to different places or kind of branched out and met new people. I was kind of like shedding those people that didn't resonate and gravitating towards people who did. And I know that's a very kind of understood process in the spiritual community, shedding the old skin, gravitating to soul family. But I feel so blessed because I really feel like that has happened. And that's the thing, the kind of message I probably would give to people who want to be on a spiritual journey but are surrounded by unsupportive people. Things will change. If you really stick to that path, you will gravitate to where you're supposed to go, And it sounds so simple, but in a way it is. I think sometimes we do try to overcomplicate things. Just but when I just did it, I just got into it, I just did it, and things just kind of, just the path that I was drawn onto, especially the last, particularly the last 11 years. Um, you know, I've just really been continually drawn further and further down my path where I'm supposed to be, understanding a lot more about my purpose and just meeting my soul family like 100%. So I think I did kind of move away from the question there, a little bit of a tangent, but yeah, that's kind of like the process, I would say, when you really focus on it, and you just, even if you are doing it kind of like in private, it will eventually blossom into something beautiful, I believe.
I totally agree, and I'll say in full transparency, we actually were talking a little bit and behind stage about a piece that she'd mentioned, and I was kind of thinking how to work that in, and you beautifully led me right to it, and that is to remind people, as we are on our spiritual path, when we started, you know, 10, 20 plus years ago, it wasn't where you could go to a store or you could go to, your friend and be like, hey, how did this work? It was normally, for the majority, it was like we had to learn on our own. We had to self teach ourselves how to do what we were doing and understand what we were doing. And in today's world, it is changed a lot to where, if I was to say crystal ball, everyone's like, oh, that's really cool. Yeah, those are really cool. And it's not that's a gypsy, devil tool, or that's not, it's not frowned upon or like hushed up anymore. And so that's the beauty of the world is, today's world is we are more open. We're not totally there, but we've made a lot of progress, and I just like to every once in a while on these shows acknowledge the progress that we're making as humanity of we're not hiding a piece of the puzzle for the planet because it doesn't fit the mainstream narrative anymore. It's like, oh no, all the pieces are now being made public and being shared. And so thank you for, bringing that up. And I think how you did it was really great. And so, and it looks like you have a fan in the chat room. Molly, I'm not even going to attempt to try and pronounce her last name. She says hello and she's loving your videos. And yeah, she's a real. She says you have that background because your room is so messy and you don't want to sit. Oh, is this like a family member?
I have no idea who this is. I think it's a troll, to be honest with you, but
Oh,
I get them a lot in my streams, you know. And this is okay, so this is the main thing, and actually I know that person's just kind of making fun of whatever mess might be around me. But you know, that's the thing in stream. I do readings a lot as well, and the one thing that always happens is I get people who are like I assume Christians, you know, and they're always saying like, "This is the devil's work. Come to Jesus," and they're like commenting
yeah.
in the chat and saying all these things. So it's definitely more accepted now, but there are still some people who like literally think it's their right and their purpose to call you out and try to like bring you to Jesus or something. Like, I think
Well,
that's
I
really strange.
apologize. I didn't realize that's who that was. I thought it was like somebody who you knew and they were just. And so I apologize for.
No, it's fine. You can't help who comes into the chat. I always play around with my trolls, to be honest. I just make jokes with them, you know? For some people, their life is to come into people's streams and say negative things, you know? And we kind of have to think about that how miserable must your life be to want to do that, to want to go into someone's stream and just be a troll, you know? So I kind of feel a bit sorry for them, you know? Kind of want to send blessings and hope that their life improves because people like us would never consider doing that, you
No.
know? So you have to think about what kind of person that is and just hold space in a way, you know?
Well, and that's pretty much all we're going to give to that energy. We're going to switch it up a little bit. And I'm finding it kind of interesting, the synchronicity for today, because we were originally scheduled for Monday and was able to do it today.
Mm-hmm.
And tonight, I have a guest on my other show. We're doing a special, like 3 hour plus, because we've just have fun, and we're like, we're wanting to talk about stuff and see if we can have a record setting episode length that holds for a while. And so she is in the UK as well. Her name is Julia Ankerhaven,
Yeah,
and
she's my
she
friend.
goes, we're from the same hometown.
Yeah. The first spaces that I went to, I drove up with Julia. Yeah, she's really cool. We stayed in the hotel room together for one night. I love
No,
her. I always pop into
yeah.
her streams, yeah.
I just love the synchronicity and the unfolding that, what are the odds not only to do, have you on and her later, but the fact that you're from the same town, it's like, wow.
This honestly,
And
it's quite a spiritual area, really. Like, I also have another friend I think she does more like emotional energy healing. I can't remember the exact term for it, but she does podcasts and streams, and she's also from the same area as me and Julia.
no, that's really cool. And so, what was it that kind of, when you were growing up, that brought you into the metaphysics? Was it by choice, or did something happen and you were like, hey, this is what I truly believe and can resonate with, and so I'm following this path?
Yeah, so the main thing for me, I was an avid lucid dreamer. Very naturally, I would lucid dream. So I would be in my dream and I could control it and I could do whatever I wanted in that space. And I would talk about that to people, thinking that that was like a normal thing and everybody did it. And my mother kind of explained to me that not everybody does that, and some people just have dreams where they can't control it. So that really made me think, and I was very, very young at this time, and that really made me think, if I can tap into something that isn't fully awakened, and obviously I didn't think of it in these terms when I was a child, but it was kind of this gist, is like, if I can tap into something a bit higher, there must be higher senses. There must be something, if I'm tapping into something that not everybody can do, what else can the mind do, or the brain do, or the soul do, if we really focus on that and try to bring that out? So I always kind of, I suppose as a child, I maybe I thought of it a little bit more like higher ability, superpower kind of thing, But it did just really kind of push me to think, what else can we do with our spirit, our energy? What else can we do? And so I got very, very into lucid dreaming. But I also had, so when I was a child, I had these experiences where I would be taken somewhere. So I would see orbs outside of my window, and then there would be beings who, when I was younger, I referred to them as like bear-like beings, but I think they're Lyran. That's my belief now. And they would take me somewhere, and I would always talk about these experiences all the time. My parents would say, "It's just a dream. It's just a dream," and that's the programming of children. So when we are children, we can tap into our third eye and our crown very easily. Children can astral project, they can have premonition dreams, they can have lucid dreams, they can connect more with interdimensional entities and maybe their star families, but you're constantly conditioned to believe that it's just a dream. So you do. And that's the kind of annoying thing for me, because I was fully under the belief that I was just a child, it was just my imagination, it was just a dream, until I was 22, And unfortunately, my mother and I went through a very traumatic experience where my twin passed away. And after that, my mother became very, very open with me. She told me all about her abduction experiences as a child in the 70s. And then she admitted to me that when I was having those experiences as a child, she did believe that I was being abducted, but she didn't say anything because she's she's always been in denial since a child and tried to be the most normal person she could be because like we were talking about earlier, I know this was off stream, but she was ridiculed when she opened up about her first experience as a child, and that really stuck with her. Like even now, she's kind of getting into writing a book, but there's still this fear because she's gone on to this normal life. She's got like a normal job, a house, all the normal things, and she's trying to just be that kind of person, and she's trying not to delve into these kind of realms, but I think sometimes it's just meant to be. It's just a part of you. Um, but yeah, so I was very likely abducted as a child and made to believe it was just a dream until I was 22. So when I was 22, that was when my spiritual journey really began. I was always drawn to these things, always drawn to anything that might be supernatural, spirits, all of that. But at the age of 22, that was like my, how can I say, like it boosted me. It was like a catalyst, to really, really push me down that path.
Yeah, and sometimes I'll call it crucible because sometimes it's not in the most pleasant way, but some people's it is. And so, yeah, it's hard to explain. One thing that I've heard recently that might help you is they call it like the aha moment where you're like, because, and I think it's called that way because we're sitting there and we're like, aha, this is what this is. This is how this works. And it's like this great unfolding, and it comes from you going, aha. And so that's just some something to think about if you're like if you're trying to relate it to some people, they may understand that term a little bit more than others. But what I'm finding interesting is as you were growing up until 22, it's like it seems like a common thread for everyone that I've met who's on the metaphysical path is, yeah, we're all isolated, we're all doing our own thing, our own study, and then we have this one moment that it's like, oh, it's okay to come out now and kind of dip our toe out the door and then be like, okay, now the whole foot can go because it's okay. And it's like slowly coming out. And I think what's interesting though too is you talk about, like traveling with a mini crystal ball, not a full size. And I find it interesting that the fact that it's a crystal ball is really the thing to focus on. And I know there are some people out there who are probably going to say, well, the energy in a big crystal ball, will probably bring stronger messages and everything through because it's bigger, more energy to it. And when you see a little one, they're like, well, yeah, that doesn't have as much energy because it's smaller, because that's what science has told us is bigger is better, holds more energy. And so I'm curious for people's perspectives, do you find actually that it doesn't matter if it's a normal size or small size crystal ball? The energy and information comes exactly the same.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm sure there are some situations where size matters, but with a crystal ball, I really I just don't agree. I understand if, let's say, it was like a rose quartz or an amethyst or a crystal that you were using for a specific purpose and energy, but with the divination tools, I just don't believe that because I do see them as it's an extension of yourself. It's a crystal ball for me as a focal point. Cards, cards are a tool. It doesn't matter to me the size of them or anything like that. The importance for me is keeping up that work. So I can't travel around with huge items. I wish I could bring all of my chimes, my gong, like everything with me everywhere, you know? If I could travel around like a video game character and just have like an inventory that's just in the ether somewhere, that would be great. But keeping up with spiritual work as you travel and as you um just have different experiences in your life is just highly important. And I think that, look at her, it's cute.
It is, and I can actually kind of sense some of the energy off of it myself, and I'm on the other end of a screen, and so
Yeah,
um,
well, that's your energy.
how do you clear and keep the crystal ball from retaining energy? Like, so let's say you do reading on someone, how do you clear it so that energy doesn't leave a print on the crystal ball itself?
Okay, so to me, I rarely on this path, the most important thing to me in maybe the whole universe, honestly, is sound frequencies. And, I always recommend different things for cleansing yourself or your home or things like that. But if you're cleansing your spiritual items, I really do recommend sound cleansing. I think tincture bells are really great. Probably my preferred method. I have a like kind of mini spinning gong. It's very small but very heavy, and I love that as well. There's just different. I would say different instruments for different tools if you feel drawn to do that. But tincture bells 100%. I just really feel like sound cleansing is more powerful for the tools because of that energy we're putting into them. Sound frequency is linked to um, our subconscious and predetermined events. So when you are reading a crystal ball or giving someone a reading, generally you do want to connect more with the predetermined events. If they want to know their future, let's say, because we have different paths on our Akashic records on our path. We have different options sometimes. Like we do have free will in some instances, but we also have predetermined events on our life path. And if you are more connected with those, then you are giving people, you know, true things that are 100% going to happen, as opposed to things that might happen, choices they might make. If there's a little fork in the road and 50% they might go that way, 50% they might go that way. You can give a reading like that, and I do that a lot, but I have to tell people, this is a free will moment here. So in the energy looks more like you will go down that path, but there's a possibility of this path. So when we use, to bring it back to cleansing, when we use sound, it's connecting more with the subconscious and predetermined events. So actually it's cleansing, but also connecting to your like subconscious psychic ability that can pick up those predetermined events. So I really hope that makes sense.
It does, and I'm curious, when you do sound therapy, have you ever, and I know this is gonna sound strange, but ever put like the person in a state where they're either visually or physically in water? Because the reason I ask this is I did one time, I had an experience where I was floating in this water and they had me with headphone like things in my ears so that I would hear specific sound. And I was just floating. They just told me just float, and I think that was like one of the most interesting astral experiences I ever had. But when I came back, my body did not feel the same as when I went in. And so I'm wondering, do you ever, get called or ever think about going, hey, let's, float on water and listen to these sounds?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a really good point. I totally, of course, resonate with water. Anything natural, any of the natural elements, of course. And like the frequency of water can change, based on the energy of us around it and sounds and different things like that. And I actually haven't done anything like that, but it's 100% something I would love to do. I'm working with two friends in the UK at the moment, and we do hold sound healing in person sound healing events near the Wirral. If anyone is in that area, feel free to contact me and attend. But we do at the moment, it's a very beautiful, like, spiritual cottage with an outdoor area. We do sound healing and we do cleansing. But I've seen some of these water sound baths. Personally, I would love to attend, but I would also love to run one as well. But one thing I think would be really great is, in natural water. So we could be near a lake or something like that. I think that would be beautiful. So actually giving me an idea. There's a day, I don't know how long you'll be at Brad's event for, but there is a day
5 days.
5 days.
Yeah.
Wow, yeah, cool, okay. So we go to the river, and we have like canoes, and I think other people have like rafts and things. I should bring some of my instruments. I'm totally going to do that now. That's such a good idea.
I was
That's
actually
such
thinking about that
yeah.
when you said, we need a natural water source. I was gonna say, like a river. I feel like
Yeah.
we're gonna
We
be
should
on a
totally do
river.
it. And then you can let me know if you feel any difference afterwards.
Yeah, and what is your thoughts when people, when they talk about sound? Like, we have singing bowls, or we have different, you know, bowls, different tone music, binaural versus regular. Do you feel like we spend too much energy and too much time going and trying to analyze what the sound is doing, where it's coming from, versus the benefit of the sound, period? Or do you feel like all of that actually does play a part and it is something important to think about and focus?
Well, I think what you're saying is it's an important point to bring up, because I do have a feeling in a lot of spiritual spaces that they think too much, they overthink, they rarely try to analyze things. And the thing is, when you find out answers, you get more questions. That's the loop, That's how life is. Like, I think people kind of reach for complexity because it's kind of comforting to keep asking questions and keep delving in, rather than feeling kind of like, whoa, is this it? Like, this is it. I'm just supposed to be. No, it can't be. There must be more. There must be more. There must be more. And I feel like people overthink way too much, and there are people who are very strict on certain things, like, you can only do this Reiki symbol on this chakra, or you have to stick very strictly to Yusui Reiki, or you have to do this specific course to be a sound healer. And that's just really not the case. In the universe, that is not how energy works. Energy and sound do not work by money and monetization or something like that, or strict regimens, because we well, if we do that, we're losing the intuitive side. And this is why you know, I'm so drawn to sound healing. Sound healing is rarely is my calling. I wish I could do it more. But I'm intuitive with it. I'm not like, I don't follow a strict I understand different frequencies for different chakras, different notes of singing bowls and things like that. I understand that, but I will always go with how I feel. If my guidance tells me to use, like, I don't know, 369 hertz for someone's solar plexus or sacral, then I'm going to do that. I'm not going to be like, no, no, because you have to go with the intuition. There's always a reason for that. And I do think that there's people love to, the thing for me, and this is a point that I've been thinking about for a while, is people kind of, they disagree with organized religion, right? So they come to spirituality. And it's like, oh, spirituality, there's no set rules. I can kind of go where I want, do what I want. But then they end up getting into a box in spirituality where there's rules and there's regulations, and you're only supposed you're not spiritual if you smoke a cigarette. You're not spiritual if you have a glass of wine. You're not spiritual if you eat chocolate once a month. It's just like missing the point, totally missing the point. It's like we're supposed to break away from strict regimented religion, and we're supposed to be open and free and explorative, if that's a word. You know what I mean? Follow your wanderlust, follow your exploration energy, exploration, and just don't. I would say don't fall into that, because why are we breaking free from organized religion just to create our own organized religion? It's crazy.
I agree, and you actually had me thinking about an experience that I had in a new way. And what it was is, after I had broken my leg, I was in Spain on a cruise, and I was I think I was still on my crutches. No, I was off crutches at this point. But what was interesting is I had the fear from my doctor in my head of do not fall. If you fall, something, it's going to be bad, in other words. So I was like in my mind going, okay, don't fall, don't fall. Well, as I'm going around to enter the terminal, you know how on some of the terminals they have that metal strip for some reason along the
Yeah.
ground? Well, it was raining earlier, and my leg that I had the surgery on lands on that metal strip, flies out under me, and I go landing on it, and I go into paranoid freak out mode of, oh my god, here I am, I just fell, I'm in Spain of all places. Do I go to a hospital in Spain? Do I go back on the ship and let the ship check it out? But finally I somewhat calmed down, and I'm like, and my parents come around the corner and they help me up, and I'm like, yeah, let's just go back on the ship, let me go lay down in the room. Well, with all of that set up, here's the experience that got really interesting. And this is where I'm going to say you got me thinking now. Is while I was on the couch in the room, I hear a voice and I see myself in this void, and this loud, booming voice asks, who are you? And the reason I'm saying that it's different is now you got me wondering, was the voice booming because of the sound frequency that it was trying to bring? And we end up with this conversation of, I say my name and I say I'm a healer and my healing element's water. And here I am on water, and I start to surround myself with water, and I'm fine. I don't need to go to the doctor or anything. The leg settles down, no damage. But the fact that the voice was booming and not like normal tone, I wonder if that sound had a purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, do you feel more like that's your higher self or a guide? It feels kind of like not really external from you. I don't know if you agree.
I think it was my higher self, but the reason I say the sound frequency aspect of it is normally my higher self, when it talks to me, is kind of the same tone I am, or maybe slightly higher if I'm not paying attention. It's like, okay, yeah, they'll get my attention that way. But I mean, I remember this voice being like booming, and it's like it was like almost like I would say, you take those big drums that people bang that are on their side, and it creates this like thunderous feeling, and it vibrates out in like the hall or the location that they're in. And so that's where I'm wondering with, your thoughts of it, with the sound healing, the fact that the voice came at such a loud frequency that there was a purpose to that versus just trying to get my attention because it was louder than normal.
Yeah, absolutely. And were you in a certain state? Like, were you just conscious, or were you like kind of going to sleep, or what kind of state were you in? Because that's really interesting experience.
I had just closed my eyes and tried to put myself in a trance to figure out how to heal myself so I didn't have to go to the doctors or create a scenario to where here I am overseas and how does insurance going to cover it, and opening a whole bunch of can of worms. And so I always will go within and try and heal myself before going to go everything, all the mainstream stuff. So yeah, I wouldn't say that I was, you know I didn't take any medicine or anything, and in fact my mom had went to get ice, so it was just me, my dad, she had left, and so nobody came around me, and I just closed my eyes and just went within to try and take care of myself.
Yeah, it sounds like a really interesting experience. And actually, I did just see a message pop up from Julia, and that's interesting because I really do believe this was connection to your higher self. But I do think there's some, and you already said it, water connection with you. And
Yeah.
the I just really think that people understand the strength of the energy of the elements around us. So, yeah, you could have water elemental guides. Your higher self could be connected itself to water because, we have water, we have sound, we have electricity, light, magnetism, all of these things that are a pattern together based on the location of the constellations around us. Like, that's why the reason why the physics acts the way it does in this realm is because of the location of the celestial bodies to us. And we have much stronger of a connection to them than we think. So it really sounds like your higher self, but it does sound like there's some strong connection to water, but not like, I feel like water, like, how can I say, like water in the beginning, like super fresh earth water, not polluted water, not the treated water or anything like that, like really fresh water, fresh from the earth, if that makes sense. Like, I really feel like you have a connection to that, your higher self itself, But again, you could have water elemental guides. It's so highly possible. I work sometimes with water elementals, fire, earth, I kind of go through phases, if you will. But you can have really strong connections to specific ones. And the water elementals especially, that is a really healing energy. Of course, water is very cleansing. So it kind of makes sense that you would connect with that. And it sounds like a beautiful experience, really.
Yeah,
Even if it may not have felt that way at the time, I don't know.
it was. And one of the things that kind of made me kind of laugh about it afterwards was I was talking with my pagan teacher at the time, who was a dear friend of mine, and we're still friends. So I don't want you guys to start thinking that, but she was like, "You're only level one pagan. How are you accessing water and the element of water and bringing it in? That is something later, that's, and taught later. How are you pulling it in naturally?" And, I find it interesting, I just naturally go with the flow. I just, I don't sit there and go, okay, I can't connect with this because I'm not supposed to be there yet.
Are
If I'm
you
to connect, I just connect. And
are you Pisces?
I am.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's another thing. So talking about this pagan experience, it's being surprised that you can be above the level that you're supposed to be at. This is my whole point about organized religion. Like, I love paganism, I love this, I love Buddhism, Hinduism. I do love some of these religions, but they're so strict and regimented that it's like you can't do this at this level, blah blah blah, and it's like, but people can. I have a client who can do energy work. She's never trained in Reiki. She's never been attuned, but she has the ability. She just channels that energy very well naturally. I think being attuned to Reiki is very important. I recommend it to everybody, even if they don't want to give Reiki, because it really helps open you up to your spirit guides. So I do always recommend it, but I don't necessarily think people need it in order to channel the energy. The energy is all around us. So
Right.
of course you can level up without being at that level.
Well, and I think it's because we have through our, and I'm going to say this because I feel like, you know, every experience we have in our life is through our filters. And so naturally, every response to situations comes from going and saying, okay, this is my viewpoint from this experience. And this is my, from this experience. So everything is kind of just doing that. And her response, and other people I feel like are the same way, is, they have from their experience, people don't naturally do this. So it kind of throws them off and surprises them when they come across somebody who naturally taps in. And I just, I find it interesting, when that happens, people's reactions, and it's like, yeah, now this is why it's hard for some of us to openly talk about certain things, because there is no frame of reference for other people because they have a hard time understanding the natural, like astral. People ask me all the time, how can you teach me to astral? I'm like, I don't know, I just do it. It's hard for me to teach what is natural, and I feel bad a little bit because I'm like, I want to, but I can't address something and make something up for you because It's what you need, because I don't want to be that person and be like, oh yeah, I'm making this up to relate to everyone. I'm like, no, I naturally do it, and I just need to be me. And if you can follow along, cool. And if not, I get it.
Yeah, and you know what? I totally agree with what you're saying about astral projection because, if someone can teach that, and I know there is people that do it, that is some level of a skill because, like I said earlier, I was always a lucid dreamer, and I teach lucid dreaming. That's easy to me to teach that, because I'm just so natural to it and used to it. And when I was doing it, I took steps to try to make sure I could do it more often, control dreams for longer. I did a lot of experimentation when I was younger with lucid dreaming. But when I astral projected, I did practice different techniques, but when it finally happened for me, my passed over loved one took me out of my body. So I'm like, I can't teach that. I can't teach that in any way. And it just seems like I feel like maybe astral projection's a little bit more of a personal, like self process, maybe. I know there are some people that teach it, but to me it just seems like you try every technique and then eventually one day it just happens randomly.
I agree. And I find it kind of interesting too when going through astral. I wonder if you ever like had the experience of coming back and being like, wow, I feel really tired from all my journeying and all that I was doing out there. I need to come back more refreshed if I'm doing this. And so create a place where you can do just that out there. Go and recharge yourself, and then boom, back in, and feel like, yeah, even though technically with traveling you may have gotten, say, 30 minutes of actual sleep where you're in restful state and not journeying, but go to this one place that takes the 30 minutes and your body feels like we've had 8-10 hours of sleep, so we're good to go.
Absolutely, because this is the purpose. When I connect with some people who give Reiki, and maybe they're kind of new to it, or it's not their job, they just do it for like friends and family, and they say, I feel so drained after giving my energy. And I say, you're not supposed to give your energy, you're not supposed to be drained, you're supposed to kind of master how to channel the energy around you. And I feel like that's Reiki, but I feel like astral projection is very similar in where, sometimes when in your first experiences, you can have entities trying to get to you, you can have attacks and battles and things like that, before you really learn to control and do what you're supposed to do there. But I totally agree. I think that there may be times when you come back and you do feel unrested, but rarely, if you're learning properly and doing things properly and intuitively and learning about your energy, I do feel like I agree with you. I feel like there's definitely a way, and I feel like it's the correct way to and when I say the correct way, I don't mean it in like a strict regimented way. Maybe your way is like you've set up your own little space in the astral. Maybe you go there. Maybe someone else's way is they, I don't know, use specific crystals or something. I'm not saying that everyone has to do it the same, but I feel like there's definitely a process to learning how to control the energy. Like, which energy am I giving? I'm channeling universal energy. I'm not giving my own energy. And then, yes, recharging in whatever way works for you. Because I do believe that if you are a light worker and you do get out there in the astral, you will have a lot of work to do, and you do have to come back rested. You don't have to be doomed to have like a sleepy, lazy physical life just because you're out in the astral. There's definitely ways to recharge and come back refreshed.
Yes, and one thing I find interesting with astral, because everybody's wanting to do it now, it's almost like what we would call in the old days the fad of the time is everyone's like, oh yeah, astral, I want to do astral. Yeah, astral's the new like hip thing. And I'm curious, when people ask you about, astral and going out there, are you advising them, hey, yes, go have fun, go do this? Or are you one of those that's, I kind of do this too. I'm like, yes, go, experience the astral, but do be guarded. There are some areas of the astral you may not want to go visit, but for the most part, hey, let's, have fun out there.
Yeah. So, like I said, I don't teach people astral projection, but if I am talking to somebody about it and they do want to do it, or they're expressing to me that they're going to practice or learn, I will always send them tips for dealing with entities, suggestions of releasing subconscious fears before you try as well. So that should come first, really. Releasing fears, tips for just in case you do encounter entities. But if you've released your fear, that should be manageable. And then the third one is real physical protections around you. Like crystal grid, vervain, tea tree, things like this, to have around you when you practice. So I will always give tips. Mostly for protection, like you're saying. So yeah, I agree with that as well.
Yeah, and one of my favorite things I'll just share with you all is whenever I would lead people into like a guided meditation in the astral, I would be like, this is where we're going, this is what we're doing. Stay focused, stay here, and be advised if you go into certain areas where the low vibration, low energies are, and you get stuck there. I warned you not to go there, so I may or may not decide to go in and get you out. So
You
let's just be safe. I know I would, but
would.
I'm like, yeah, and it's one of the I've kind of been noticing it when I talk with a lot of people, on the astral. It seems like it's not common though for a lot of people to be like, yes, I can go in and navigate through the muck area, if you want to say, of the astral and be okay. And I kind of wonder sometimes, because I can do that, is if that's just something unique to my uh how can I put it, star seed side, or is it because I just don't limit myself and saying, yeah, I'm gonna get stuck in there if I go in there. I don't have that belief.
Yeah, I definitely think there's a huge difference for people who've released fears before they try or before they attain that. But I also think that, people like you, um, there is like I was talking about lucid dreaming earlier, and I was saying how, I had sorry, abduction experiences, and I was being
Yeah.
told that they're just a dream, they're just a dream, they're just a dream. And with that, I feel like there's a lot of programming to children that those experiences don't happen, they're not real, and they get very, very suppressed. So if you are someone who still has those abilities, is very capable, very good at that, then that shows some part of you that's not easily programmed. So, good for you. That's perfect. And I do feel a lot of that, a lot of the time that can link to starseed origins or even just life path missions here. Some people are not supposed to be fully programmed because they have missions to do to awaken people, to, share knowledge and all of these things. So, but that's great that you are not able to be programmed in that way.
In that aspect, yes, but I do think I still get caught up in other aspects. And
Oh yeah, honestly, as humans, there is no one on this earth that has zero programming. They might say that, but there is subconscious things, societal things. Like we all have something. We're human. We're living a human experience. That's the point.
we are, and I love that you say that because I say that a lot of times too. And I feel like at sometimes in my life, I'm like, when I feel like I need to give myself a break and be like, kind of use that proverbial get out of jail free card, like that we all talked about in the like 80s and 90s having. And I will say to myself, yeah, I'm just a spiritual being having a human experience. And it's like, that's my way of my mind going, okay, we're done beating ourselves up. We're done, you know, kicking ourselves about this and dreading this, returning to normal now. It's like, we're done, processed, back to this. And it's like back on track. And I'm kind of wondering too, what was it in your life growing up and or later in life where you seen different divinity tools and you were like, "Oh, I want to learn that one. I want to do that one." What was it that kind of drew you in to pick which divination modalities that you did?
Yeah. So, the spiritual and kind of like connected side, like psychic side of my family comes from my mother's father, who was a Hungarian occultist, and we don't know too much about the rest of um the family tree because they both passed away when she was very young. She was a targeted individual, my mother, but she would use oracle cards every single day, or like a tarot. She would pull one, and I would remember going into her room and seeing like a tarot on the desk, like her card of the day. And I just feel like from being very close to her energy and her kind of holding that space for me, of course, as a child and growing up and things like that. um I just was really connected to her. I think it was very natural, very intuitive. And my mother actually bought me my first tarot deck. So she went to a very special, beautiful spiritual store in York in the UK, and she got me my first tarot deck, and it was wrapped in a purple ribbon as well. Apparently, it was supposed to be wrapped in a purple ribbon, this specific um, way of gift giving, basically, from her. And yeah, so my first thing really, but I do also do talks about how can I say it, unique forms of divination. And this is one thing that I talk about a lot. So I'm telling you here that, oh yeah, I got into tarot from my mother because like she did it and things like that. But think back to our childhood. Did anybody ever hold a flower and say, loves me not, loves me? When you do that, you're trying to divine with the flower someone's feelings for you. That's divination. Did you ever make a cootie catcher? Do you remember that?
I
It's like
do.
origami, and you would write little future things in there. We were already always trying to predict the future. Like we were always drawn to divination. Everybody was. Have you ever flipped a coin for fate to decide something for you? We've always used these tools, and that's the thing. It's like it's not really unique to me and you, and people in the wider world just don't realize that they were drawn to it because it gets suppressed. They were always drawn to it. We were always drawn to it. It's natural.
No, that's a great way to put it. And I love how you put it and tied it into like, flipping a coin or, you know, the little games that we would play and not
Yeah.
realize, the deeper insight because being a paranormal investigator, I get a lot of people who will walk up to me and they'll be like, it's so cool that you have all these paranormal experiences. I personally have never had one. And I kind of look at him and I had this stunned look because I'm like, I can see energy on them. And I'm like, you have totally had paranormal experience. You just don't realize what it is. And I'll ask them a question. I'll go, really? And like sometimes I'll say, so have you never smelt like a flower that was not in your house? And they're like, well, yeah. I'm like, that's a paranormal experience. And they're like, oh my God. And they're like, their face lights up and they light up going, oh my God, I've had this. And it's like, I feel so like heartfelt going, wow, I made this person's day by pointing out to them that they've had an experience where they thought they hadn't, or something as simple as that. So I love how you're equating divination the same way.
Yeah.
And it is so true. It's like, we live in an esoteric world where we are exposed to all kinds of hidden gifts and hidden knowledge, but we're also told at the same time that we're doing it, going, oh yeah, that's silly you're doing that, or oh yeah, what a fun game that is. So we don't take it seriously. We don't
Mm-hmm.
think about it in the right way, so to speak.
Absolutely. I would love to do paranormal investigation. I would love to. That's so cool.
Well, yeah, and the interesting thing is I've always viewed myself as being like the rule follower. Like if you go someplace, and they say don't do this, you don't do this. And I found myself the other day talking with a friend and going, you have a paranormal team. Let's get your mediums together because this location that I'm wanting to check out doesn't allow paranormal investigating, but mediums are investigating and they can't turn off or they can't, not do what they do. So we could totally take them with us and do an investigation of this place that doesn't allow it. And it's like, why am I starting to like think around the uh
That's
rules?
great though. That's exactly the game. Like that's exactly what we're supposed to do. Like I'm really sorry, but I'm an anarchist. So to me, it's like I I'm an anarchist, but I also believe that we can't play like if the Earth is a game of Monopoly, I can't really follow the rules of Twister because it's not going to work. But what you're doing is it's like a loophole. You're like bending those rules, and to me that's really anarchist. So I just appreciate that.
Well, actually, it's funny you mentioned Monopoly because an ex-girlfriend of mine, my best friend and his ex-girlfriend, we were playing Monopoly, and my ex-girlfriend and we were dating at the time, but we were just having fun, and she and I were like two we had like almost all the properties in front of us, but she had missing pieces that I needed. I had missing pieces she needed. And so we looked at each other and we said, hey, what if I allow you to stay for free? Will you trade me these properties I'm missing? And can I stay at your places for free? And, we swap properties so we both own what we own. And she was like, yeah, that's a great deal. And we did it. And it irritated my friend and his ex girlfriend. And we're like, you guys are cheating. I was like, show me in the book where this is not allowed. And it's not in the book. Nowhere in the book does it say no forming teams. And so it's like we did exactly like you're saying. We bent the rules and created a scenario where we were having great fun and like thriving because we collaborated and formed this partnership, and they kept apart and were like picked off one by one.
I feel like you have a little bit of an anarchist side to you. Do you have Andromedan connection at all?
I do.
Yeah, I can pick that up a lot.
Yeah, and my dad and I, we would have the motto, like if we were doing like if we were going somewhere and we'll see a sign that says, "Oh, no U-turn here," but I'm like, the next U-turn is so far down the road. I'm like, there's nobody here. I'm like, I'm doing it, and I'm
Yeah.
like, this is nonsense. It's like, nope, I'm gone. Here we go. Do the U-turn, and I'm like, I rarely get caught, but my dad one time, because we both have reverend licenses, my mom told me he got caught doing a U-turn where he wasn't supposed to. And he pulled out his little reverend's license card and showed it to the officer. The officer was like, "Okay, you can go do your thing." And I was like, "Oh my god, you used your license to get out of a ticket?"
What
And
does
then in the
that?
back, hmm?
What's a reverend called?
Reverend's license is like so we can marry people, but we're not tied to a
Wow!
church.
Really? That's
I
crazy.
we did that because we were doing energy work and like I was doing Reiki, and so this way legally we're protected under the license that if somebody was like to complain that we did something, they would go and it's almost like the church would protect us. They
Yeah,
couldn't take
kind of
our
like
personal.
insurance.
Yeah,
Fair enough.
it is like a minister. It's
Yeah.
like I have all the perks and I can form a church if I wanted to. I just that's not me. I don't want people like bowing to me or like putting
Well,
me up on this
we can do
pedestal.
the Church of Secret Frequencies.
Hey, there you go. The church of the real world.
Yeah.
So, having that, connection to, seeing like the ETs and everything, I'm curious, as you seen all these like, if you ever saw loved ones on the other side and then like ETs and interdimensionals, what was it like when the first time that you saw them and like what were you like your reaction? Were you like freaking out and going, what was that? Who was that? Or were you more of, I didn't feel anything bad from them, so hey,
Yeah,
let's
so
keep going.
this is where my interest in really delving into and exploring this topic comes from because, like I said, my mother was an abductee throughout her whole childhood, and a lot of her experiences, not all of them, but the majority of them, were very, very negative. Now, going back to the experiences I had as a child that I was told were just a dream, but turned out to be abductions. Um, I remember feeling very at home with them. I would talk about those experiences all week to my parents. You know how it's like another family. I have another family. They're kind of like bears, and they look after me. Like I was always speaking very highly of where they were taking me, what we were doing. Um, so I would always speak quite highly of that. And then in when I was older and I did a more conscious effort at interfacing with beings in meditation and trance and things like that. Good night. Is that Julia? Good night.
Yes.
Um, so when I would more consciously try to connect, I always had positive experience. Like it was always positive. And it made me question my mother's experiences. I really strongly believe that a lot of them were governments or some kind of human faction. Maybe it's not government, maybe there's a different um, three letter agency or whatever, but some kind of human faction, I believe, that were negative, doing experiments, putting chips in people. I mean, I have a chip here and I have a chip at the base of my spine. And I do believe, yeah, so I believe that some of hers were government, but mine have always been positive, and I'm really grateful for that.
And we are like an hour and 15 minutes. I just
Yeah,
noticed.
sorry.
And no, I'm totally fine. I can keep going if you are available. I just was honoring the time and noticing it, and it got me thinking about something that we were talking about before the show started, and I was curious, how we could share that, and that was talking about, sacred spaces, sacred places. Everybody hears the word sacred and automatically goes, oh, church, holy ground, holy this or holy that. And that's not exactly what sacred means in the terms that, like, we're talking on an energetic level. And so, would you mind taking a moment, because I know you travel to a lot of sacred places? Share what those adventures are like and what a sacred place means to you.
Okay, so yeah, so I think the most important thing to remember is that Mother Earth is a living spirit. She is, she or whatever, however you want to refer to her. There is not rarely a space here that is not sacred. The earth is sacred. We can think of it like that. But then if you think about the macrocosm, the microcosm. So imagine your own person, you're sacred, your whole body is sacred, your whole spirit, but you have these chakra points. You may all be sacred, but you have the root, you have the sacral and things like that. And I believe the same with the earth. The whole earth is sacred, but there are these points of higher spiritual energy, and sometimes, unfortunately, lower spiritual energy. And then we have to deal with that if there's entities or portals. Of course, that's something that you may be called to do on your travels or in the astral. But yeah, that's how I think of it, because the whole of the earth is sacred. It's just that there are these points that maybe are more focused for specific things, so pyramid structures, Glastonbury tour. Glastonbury's super. I don't care if people say that it's lost its energy or it's lowered its energy. I do not feel that. And like we were talking about Sedona as well. I think Sedona is strong enough to get through some attacks or some negative portals or beings or anything. Like we were saying before, like there is areas that are they're higher energies. Maybe you could refer to them as portals or chakras or however you want. Call it whatever you want. But yeah, I think my most important thing that I would say is the whole of the earth is sacred. You can make the most beautiful spiritual sacred place in your back garden, in the forest near your home, even in your bedroom. Even if it's not. The thing as well is we always put ourselves down in the sense of we always feel like we have to be in nature, which I love to do that, but don't put yourself down if you can't do that. If you work in an office, if you're always at home, you're always in buildings, you're not separate to nature. It's not like you need to get back to nature. You are nature. So I just feel like it's also recognizing the ability of sacred space and spiritual energy anywhere that you are as well. And one thing I would point out with this, because things like pyramids, carved spheres, certain shapes and structures that are made around the world are used to influence the frequency and energy of the earth, pointing in certain directions, like the pyramids pointing in a certain direction. And that's basically feng shui on a mass scale, And I think that's one spiritual practice that really has been forgotten about is feng shui, because we always remember the importance of our own internal system. Oh, is my chakra unbalanced? Do I need to cleanse my aura? But we kind of forget about the space around us, Is your sacred space or your bedroom or that little sacred space you've created in your garden, like we spoke about before, does that have good feng shui? Does that have a good flow of energy in there, So I think that anywhere can be sacred, but we do have to think about how the flow of energy is impacting us and flowing around the space. And yeah, and that's not to discount spiritual sacred places at all, because I greatly love them, but I do just kind of feel of them like I explained, like they're a chakra in a whole system that itself is all fully sacred.
No, I appreciate that, and I agree with you. And one of the things too that I've been hearing a lot lately about is everyone's like, "Oh, the ley lines. Oh, are the ley lines here? Oh, do the ley lines even cross here? Oh, that's making this even more sacred." And I wonder, one, with the magical energy of the planet, and I use the magic with a K version, not the C, when I'm talking about this,
Yeah.
is, the ley lines do, have an impact, but does the energy, I don't feel like right now I'm having the vision of the ley lines are not like these small thin lines that we like picture on a map, and that the ley line energy is actually covering the entire planet. It's just we are limiting the energy by visualizing it as a line to explain why something's happening over here but not over here. I'm kind of
Yeah.
curious, do you feel like the ley lines are, like much wider or more inclusive, or yeah, that the energy is kind of pinpointed?
Yeah. So first, I'm always fully transparent about everything. I will never add fills or fill in any gaps. So I will just say that most of my earth work that I do is in the astral, and I have a lot of guidance of where to go, what I'm doing, what time I'm doing things at when I'm there. So it is very guided, like I'm guided. So I don't really have I'm not super knowledgeable about ley lines, basically, is what I'm saying, in this 3D physical realm. I haven't really looked too much into them. So I'm not the best person to be super knowledgeable about them. So I would just say that all of my artwork is astral and I'm guided to it. So I can't really comment too much on it, but I really would agree with you in that sense, because when we believe something like so holistically on earth, like everybody believes it, it does become true. It's like, this is my point about, sorry to go off on a tangent, but this is my point about Ouija boards. Now, Ouija boards are evil. And, if you use one, you're probably going to contact a negative spirit, but it wasn't always like that, and it doesn't have to be like that. Why is a Ouija board evil, but these are fine? They're all divination tools. It's just a divination tool. So what's the issue? But we've all, because of Hollywood mostly, we've all put this energy onto that. So now it's kind of true. It's like, use a Ouija board and try to connect with someone positive. It will be very rare that you will, because it's an egregore, or egregore, depending where you're from, is how you pronounce it. But it is basically when we give so much power to a thought form because we all fully believe it. that it becomes truth. So that's why a Ouija board is not really used in divination anymore, because now it's kind of, we've impacted it, we've made it so that we only connect with negative spirits. And I do believe that about other things where the belief gets so widely believed that it becomes our truth, it becomes our reality, you know?
Right. And Terry brings up a good point. It's not the tool, it's the intention.
Yeah,
And
exactly. Exactly, and this is why I really believe that we should bring the Ouija board back as a divination tool, and it should just be able to be used. But it is just, we're co-creating this reality. So, the egregore thought form of the collective will impact you. Unfortunately, you may be strong enough or lucky enough to connect with a positive spirit. I'm absolutely not saying it's not possible, but because of that egregore that we've put out there, that the world has put out there, it makes it more difficult. It does, because that impacts us. We're all living in the same reality. It does impact us. But yeah, I free the Ouija board. That's my movement, you know?
well, I kind of am one of those that I'm like, I don't recommend it as a tool for a lot of people. But it's not because of, like you're saying, it's the darkness of it and everything. It's because people are opening portals and inviting things in, but they think, okay, because this is a game, we close the board, we put it away, everything's done and everything, but everything that you've invited in is still here. That portal that you opened is still open. And so that's where I say, to people when they ask me, should these be used? The answer for me is no, because people don't realize what they're doing with it. If there was more education around it, I would be like, yes, that is, it is a tool and is, usable.
Yeah,
But you have to
100%.
respect it and respect what's going on versus just treating it like a game.
Yeah, we definitely have to release what we have put onto it, release that negative energy, release that expectation, that egregore of the negative intention behind it. I definitely wouldn't just recommend it to someone who's like just starting out in divination, but I feel like we should release the negative connotation with it. I really feel like we should. And of course, if we do that, and like you're saying, being a little bit educated about safety and protection, I think that's the main thing. Is like, I'm not really going to tell someone how to do something or how to use a certain tool, but I will always be really, really insistent on certain protection practices, herbs, angels, whatever I feel, sigils, symbols, whatever I feel is right for that person. I'm super insistent on protection and cleansing.
And talking about protection, and, I think we've kind of mentioned grounding a little bit. Is, I'm looking at, Earth realm wise, everybody talks about, oh, here are great ways to ground. Here are great ways, to protect yourself. But I don't know that many people have ever talked about grounding with the astral. And there is a little bit of, people, we kind of mentioned a little bit of protection with the astral of, being aware of where you're going and everything. But how does, like, I'll just say, use you as an example. How would Venus, when done doing astral work, ground herself for being here on the earth?
Well, my question would be: is Venus ever really here on the Earth? I feel like I'm always somewhere else. But yeah, grounding practices. I don't really know. I mean, for me, the thing that I highly recommend and what I really wish I could do more is house plants. Have a house plant. You know, people always say you have to put your feet on the ground, you have to go into a forest. Not everybody, not everybody can do that, and not everybody can do that every day. But you can sit with a plant, you can meditate with a plant, you can stroke its leaves, you can touch its soil. You know, you can just be in that energy of that plant, that natural, you know, beautiful thing. And I just think that having some connection to nature within your artificial space, your home, you know, is the most important thing. 100% the most important thing.
Very cool. And since you do go, like you're guided to spots, and your travels are kind of guided, is there anywhere that you've heard about or read about and you're like, okay, guides, when are we going here? Can we go here? I want to go here, but I'm waiting for you guys to say, yes, let's go here.
Yes. So at the moment, there are three main places. So one place is Sedona. One place is Coral Castle in Florida. I really want to go. Um, and the other place is a Taoist temple in. Oh, sorry, I clicked a notification. A Taoist temple in ideally Taiwan, but maybe anywhere in China would do if I could find one. But a Taoist temple, 100% is my number one place I want to visit. But yeah, in America, Sedona and Coral Castle, Florida.
And I'm trying to picture if I'm picturing the right place for the Coral Castle. That's the place where the gentleman created this place, but nobody can explain how it was made and why it was made. And it appeared almost literally overnight, is how they describe it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the Coral Castle.
Yeah,
Okay, I just wanted to
yeah,
make sure because I didn't want to be like going, yeah, and then find out when we like if we ever cross paths and we're like, yeah, let's go, and be like, wait, I thought we were going to this place. What? Where are we
no,
going?
that's definitely it. Yeah.
No, that's really cool, and I want to thank you for sharing, all the information that you have shared with us, and you know your time as well, because I know you are busy with a lot of things, and so I am so grateful and appreciative that we were able to have this episode, and the timing of it was actually really kind of perfect because yes, we'll actually it's a rare thing for me to actually meet guests in person because I don't travel as much right now, that we are going to be hanging out for a birthday bash coming up, and so it's kind of cool that we doing this show and be able to meet face to face soon.
Yeah, it's amazing. Actually, I didn't know you were coming. I don't know every single person who's coming, so I keep being surprised. Like, oh yes, I'm going to meet this person. This person is coming. Really, really cool. It's going to be amazing. So I
It
can't wait.
is.
And also, I think there is another guy coming who's like into paranormal. He might bring some like equipment and things. And one day, if we have time, we might visit like a kind of abandoned, like rundown, haunted area. So if you would be up for that, I would love to do that.
I think the gentleman you're mentioning is Jeff.
Yes, I love Jeff.
Yeah, Jeff is a dear friend of mine, and yeah, we
Really?
are totally, and this will be my first time to meet Jeff in person too. I actually am on his network, and we talk about trying to meet up, but him being so far, it's like hard to get over in that area and his work, and so we were like, oh yeah, we're going to be meeting up. So yeah, let's see if we have time to do this and visit places and, have some fun while we're out there. And so, yeah, um, maybe Jeff knows of some places nearby there that like the three of us or whoever wants to join us can go and do like what I would kind of more call it like a mini scouting investigation maybe than a full-fledged investigation, because one, I won't be traveling with all my equipment, but
Yeah, yeah.
two is I don't know how much time we'll have there, and so I tend to call them more when they're shorter scouting as like, yeah, get a feel for it and be like, yeah, is this a place worth coming back to and coming full-fledged? And I'm not sure what's around there, and so
Well, I want to
I'm
try. I
up.
want to try. Maybe we won't get time, but I want to try. I think it would be really fun. And I just kind of want, even if we don't have equipment, I kind of want to, see what I pick up, see what I sense personally myself as well. I just think it would be really fun. But yeah, he's a great guy. He's a great guy.
Yeah, I actually have started putting aside and not really using equipment. It's like I may just use my cell phone a lot of times. And so I'm like, I'm totally down to, even if it's just walking around, around the property and just seeing what we feel or
Yeah.
experience. I'm like, yeah, I'm game. I'm down.
Yeah, there's a lot of like very old graveyards around there, and me and Brad went to one, and I was getting this message like from the I think his name was John. It was a guy who was buried there, and he was like um trying to get me to find the grave, and he was saying, "I'm buried with my family. I'm buried with my family." So I found this grave, and it said John, and then whatever the second name was, I can't remember. I did write it down. Um, and then there was all the other graves next to him had the same second name. So I was like, that's him, because he said buried with his family. So all the other
Right.
graves next to him having the same name, he led me to his grave. But yeah, he told me a few things. I wrote it down. I can't remember now. It was a while ago, but very, very interesting experience.
Yeah, no, I'm excited, and I'm like, as much as I'm saying this is vacation time and time to like have fun and chill, I'm like, I will always be like, if somebody taps me on the shoulder and be like, hey, we're thinking about checking out this place over here that, may be haunted, I'll be like, okay, let's go. I'm like,
Yeah, why
I'm
not?
I'm good. I can be ready in like 2 seconds flat.
Well, I really, really appreciate you having me, and it's been great to kind of get to know you a little bit. So I'm excited. I'm excited for
Yes.
the party.
And, and I will say this with my full heart, and that is you are welcome anytime if you ever want to come back on the show and just have like a paranormal chit chat or a metaphysical chit chat. I'm like, let's do it. We totally can do it.
Yeah, there's so much more we could get into. I'm sure we could speak for hours and hours.
Oh yes. And so something I've been guided to do this season, Venus, is I end the shows, or I try to end the shows. Sometimes we go a little longer because we start talking about something, but I leave the guests with this message that I bring to you from me and my shows, and that is from my heart and the heart of my shows. Thank you for what you're doing for humanity. Thank you for being you, your authentic, true self. Thank you for sharing and being open. And just thank you for being a light on this planet.
Same to you.
Thank
Absolutely
you.
same to you. It's been great. Thank you so much.
Yes. And so, everyone, be sure to follow her on her website and her YouTube channel. They are in the description for the episode. Is
Yeah.
there anything that you want to leave the audience with, Venus, that you feel like we didn't get to cover or share real quick before we end?
No, I think we covered like really a lot, but like I said, there's tons that we could still talk about. But it's been really great, and yeah. So I just wanted to say, I think you have linked me, but for anyone who's interested in me, my YouTube and Facebook website are the best ways to get in touch with me. So the YouTube is Secret Frequencies Sessions, and the website is secretfrequencies.com/shop. And you can find me there, you can find my email, you can message me, and don't be shy and feel free to reach out.
Yes, and I'll put up that banner real quick for.
No, it's Secret Frequencies IES.
Oh, I always type things quick. Let me fix that real quick. I try to type real quick so I can make sure I get it. And
that's okay.
Let's see if it'll let me do it or if I have to start over.
Oh, if you put it in the description, it's okay. Don't worry.
I think it's letting me do it. Let's see. I just gotta. Oh, I'm clicking and I forgot show.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Yes, it's been lovely talking with you, and I look forward to more conversations with you. And you are a bright soul, so lovely, and it has been an honor and a pleasure having you on. And do follow along because you never know when Venus and I may hop on for another show. And so I will have my laptop with me at the bash. Brad mentioned, maybe doing some shows while out there. So
Yeah.
You never know, guys. I might actually do a little bit of fun work and play with shows while out there. So we'll see. And in the meantime, have a wonderful rest of the day. Enjoy your weekend, everyone. And we will see you for the next episodes. Have a great one, everyone. Yeah, it does that. Let's try that again.